Okay, so let me fix this here so everybody can see. Yeah. Say it again. Nope, I got it. I think I can figure this one out. Okay. All right. Bismillah. Assalamu alaikum. Finally. Alhamdulillah. So, I want you guys to turn your attention to the board. All right? Because our discussion today is going to be totally from the board. For those of you guys online, you're probably not going to be able to see the board too well. I'm going to do my best. As you can see the picture in front of you, very cheesy. But that's what marriage looks like, especially when you're young. Just two cheesy people living your lives. So what's going to happen is your friends are going to try to destroy this. You two together, y'all fine. But when your friends get involved, it's like, he goofy. She goofy. Yo, bro, I'm going to try to use y'all language. Right? I know it's going to be cringe. العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. Does everybody have something to write with? Okay. Or you can use your phone to take notes. All right? Please don't be on your phone doing anything. I'll need your focus, your attention here. All right, so I want to say first and foremost, thank you for your patience. Finally got this together. Thanks to, what's your name? Inaya, mashallah, tabarakallah. All right, alhamdulillah. So, welcome to what is our first youth marriage workshop here at Rolla Islamic Center of Delaware. I came to the realization at some point that if we want to change our narrative, if we want to make sure that our young people are going into marriage and doing it correctly, we have to equip them. It's easy for us to sit back and judge the youth in the way that they are practicing Islam. It's easy. But the hard part is getting in there and teaching them exactly the way that it should be done properly. All right? And then after we do that, you guys are pretty much on your own because we've equipped you. We've given you everything that you need. So our workshop today, inshallah ta'ala, is going to consist of the following things. So our workshop is designed to prepare you for your journey into marriage by equipping you with the following tools. So the first thing we're going to talk about is the benefits of marriage. All right? Is there any benefit in getting married? There's a lot of talk today about whether or not it's even beneficial for marriage. From a woman's perspective, you don't want to be locked down. You can do bad by yourself. You're not going 50-50 with no man, blah, 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 blah. And to the men, it's, I want my own peace. I want, my own sanity. I don't want to spend money on somebody. She's not worthy. She's not deserving, to the end of it. So there's a lot of talk about whether or not it's even beneficial to get married today to begin with. The second thing we're going to talk about is the Islamic conditions for marriage. There are 5 conditions that have to be met in order for your marriage in Islam to be considered valid. If one of these 5 are missing, then it may infringe on the validity of your marriage in Islam, which means that you may be with someone thinking that you're married, but from an Islamic perspective, you're actually not married. Very dangerous. So that is something that you really want to pay attention to. The next item that we're going to talk about is how to prepare yourself for marriage as a young adult. Many of you guys, let me see, what are my age brackets here? How old are you, brother? 21, okay. 21. Go ahead. I know that's old, but I'm showing my age. Go ahead. How old are you? Yeah, you.
Me?
No, right here in the blue sweater.
Oh, 12.
12. You shouldn't even be here. Yeah.
You made me.
Yeah.
16.
16. All right. Oh, you already married. Next. 15. 18. 16. 24. You just made it. 15. 15. 18. Next to him. 15. So a lot of 15, 16, a couple of 18-year-olds, a couple of 20-year-olds. And that's for the men. Alhamdulillah, I'm glad you guys came. How many of you guys came because you wanted to come? Or you came because your parents dragged you here? Alhamdulillah, you're here. That's all that matters. All right, let's go to the girls. Ages. Let me start from here. 19. That's mom.
Yeah.
Next. 30.
I'm grandma.
Grandmama. Grandmother. 23. 25. We know women lie about the age, so I'll take whatever number you throw out there. I'll take it. 21. Okay, next. 24. 23. 24. 12. Mom. Okay. 18. 15. 17. 15. 15. 24. 23. Okay, we know how women play about numbers. I want to give you an extra number that you didn't ask for. 23. In the back. 17. 22. 18. So if you look at the ratio between the boys and the girls, what do you notice the age differences? What do you notice?
The women are older.
The women are older. I'm glad you guys paid attention to that. And that is usually, I'm going to pull up some statistics on board. That is usually how it goes. That is usually how it goes. All right? So, meaning women are more apt to, consider marriage around this particular age. Boys usually wait until a later time. If I were to ask all of the girls that are here, I'm pretty sure most of you, especially those of you in your 23s, your 24s, you're probably contemplating marriage. Maybe you're not there where you're ready to do it tomorrow, but it's something that you're starting to think about. For our boys, 15, 16, 17 years old, probably the furthest thing from their minds. And that's something that we want to change, because we'll find, when I pull up the statistics, that people are waiting longer and longer to get married in American society. And that's dangerous for us as Muslims. All right? So the last thing we're going to talk about is how to go about seeking a spouse. What are the proper avenues that you should use when you are looking for a spouse, whether a husband or a wife? All right? This discussion is interactive, so I want you guys to engage. I know that's kind of dark. It says, the institution of marriage has always been a staple in the Islamic tradition for the following reasons. Meaning marriage in the Muslim community has always been something that is at the forefront of the Muslim community. Very important to the Muslim community for a number of reasons. And you hear a lot of discussions on social media about marriage. Some of it, most of it negative, some of it positive. Nonetheless, maybe you've asked yourself, why do Muslims always talk about marriage? Because marriage is very important in the Muslim community for the following reasons. Number one, because marriage helps us to build families. In Islam, you can't build a family without marriage. Why? What happens if you have children with someone that you're not married to?
Problem with the inheritance.
Well, before that, what is the problem with that?
They get divorced.
They're not married to begin with.
Like they separate.
I was gonna say when he said they don't feel a sense of obligation to. Sometimes they don't feel a sense of obligation to the kid or one of them.
So if people have children with each other and they're not married, they don't necessarily feel an obligation to take care of those children?
Sometimes.
You can't have sex without being married.
Okay, that's the biggest thing. So that means that if two people are not married and they have children, then how does Islam see those children? Don't use the word bastard. Y'all so Gen Z. Y'all just say stuff, man. That makes me cringe. Okay, let's find another way to say that. Illegitimate. The children are considered illegitimate. Meaning those children are not recognized from an Islamic perspective in terms of inheritance and all of the other rights that is given to a child that is born legitimately. A child that is born illegitimately, the father of that child is not obligated to give that child his last name. Which is why back in the 70s, you'll find that when many of my parents, I was born in the 70s, you'll find that many of our children that were born in the 70s, if the parents were not married, they have their mother's last name. All of my sisters, I was fortunate. I don't know why. I thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala every day. I don't know why, but all of my sisters, they have my mother's last name. I'm the only child that from my mother that has my father's last name. And I'm still puzzled as today, why did we have, Move over. I'm still puzzled today as it relates to why I have, even my cousins, they all have their mother's last name. They don't have their father's last name. Which means that they're going to pass that last name on to their children. Meaning their father's legacy is done. Their father's legacy is done. All of my children have my last name, which is my father's last name. So my father's legacy will continue on as a result of that. And to this day, I still question, my pops, he passed away around this time last year, August last year. So, we've always asked, like, why did you? And he's like, I don't know. It just happened. I don't know. But I'm grateful. So it helps to build families. You can only build a family in Islam with marriage. You cannot build a family on zina, fornication, and adultery. Number 2, marriage is a staple in the Muslim community because this is how we build communities. If my son marries her son, our families are now merged together. Oh, stop. Let me do this again. Pause. Super pause. If my son marries her daughter, our families are now merged together. Our families are now merged together. And if my daughter marries her son, our families are now merged together. So each and every child that you have, those children are going to get married and marry into other families, and those families now become a part of your family. Whether you like everybody in that family or not, that's besides the point. The fact of the matter is they are now your in-laws. These are now your family members. And this is the way that it was during the time of the Prophet ﷺ with the Sahaba. And so we should, be thinking about how do we continue to build our communities. If we are constantly, our male children are marrying non-Muslim women or looking outside of the Muslim community to find spouses, and our daughters are left to look within the Muslim community because men are usually the ones who venture outside of the community to find a spouse. Women typically stay within their circle. Women typically, especially African American women, because African American women are the least likely to marry outside of their culture. Simply because men outside of the African American culture are really not checking for our women. So if we are marrying outside of our community, how do we build communities with marriage? So it's very important for us to take that seriously. All right? You got to think. All of us in here, I'm talking to the parents that have children. You should be thinking, okay, these children of mine are going to get married. That means that my family is going to grow. My family is about to expand. Every child of yours that marries into another family, that family now becomes a part of your family. And so your family is growing and growing and growing. You have son-in-law over here. You have a daughter-in-law over here. You have another son-in-law over here. And all of those families are now a part of your family. And this is how we build communities. You guys understand? May not make sense to you totally right now, but as you begin to think about fortifying the community, these are the type of thoughts that we have to entertain. Number 3, marriage protects you from zina. Anybody not know what zina is? Fornication and adultery. That means to have sexual intimacy with someone that you are not married to. All right? And through marriage, it should protect you from zina, because zina destroys the moral fabric of a society. What do I mean by that? I want the young people to engage. What do I mean that zina destroys the moral fabric of the community? In the back.
It's like, there's like certain things that like when you're married, you have, your morals grow. So when you commit fornication or adultery, you're disrespecting those morals that you otherwise would not get.
Right. So as a moral person, okay, next one.
When zina grows common in the community, the value as people as a whole goes down, and that is just seen as an object that.
Ooh, who was that? Let me take a good look at you because I can't really see. Who was that? Okay, that's Zafira's son. All right, I knew that. That voice sounded familiar. Say that again, man. Say that again. Very profound.
When zina becomes common in a society, people's value as people go down, and now you're just an object to get thrown around with, and well, now I'm done with you. So that's it.
Right. He said that when zina becomes prevalent in a community, fornication and adultery, there is no moral obligation to honor one another in relationships. We don't have an obligation to honor one another anymore. So I just objectify you. I see you, you're cute, somebody I want to sleep with, I sleep with you, and then I move on to the next person. So the value of how we see one another in society starts to decrease. Does that sound familiar in today's time? Absolutely. This is exactly what we are living right now, where we have objectified each other. Women do it, men do it. More so women today than men, because boys are usually afraid of girls in their teenage years. Girls are a little bit more assertive, a little bit more aggressive. It can be a group of girls walking, and it can be one or two guys or a guy walking by himself. One of the girls in the crowd would say, "Oh, he cute." Right? And he'll keep walking. He's not going to turn around and engage. Most young boys are not going to turn. You don't got that type of swag. I promise you. I promise you. You're going to keep it moving because you're uncomfortable. But if you was with your boys and it was like one or two girls, you might say something. Because with the crew, you build your confidence. It's a false sense of confidence, because if you were really confident, you wouldn't need your boys to be like that. So it's a false, when boys get together, it's a false sense of confidence. So we have to be mindful of that. That when zina becomes prevalent in a community, it destroys the moral fabric of the society, because we begin to objectify one another. We don't feel a moral obligation to the person. We don't feel that we owe them anything other than a good time. Marriage is important because it builds the wealth of the community. How does marriage build wealth of a community? It's something that I bet you never thought about. Huh?
Like family-owned businesses.
Okay, two people get together and they decide to open up a business. And then that family business becomes a staple in the community. And then those two people pass on that business to their children. It's very unfortunate that many of our children, your generation, very lazy. If your parents had a business right now and passed that down to you, it would die within the first 1 or 2 years, simply because we just don't have the drive. Gen Z, you guys are spoiled. You have been given everything. You have been, including my children. I'm guilty of that as well. You've been given everything on a silver platter. And that comes back to haunt us later on, because you don't appreciate anything. But building wealth is important. Two people get married. He works, she works. They begin to put money to the side. They give sadaqah to the masjid. They, help build the community. They're doing things together with their wealth. Not to mention when you get married and you have children, the Prophet ﷺ, he said that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala increases your rizq, increases your provision when you have children. Anybody who has had children at the time that you had children and you were broke, and you find that provision is coming to you from places you couldn't even imagine, you understand that. I didn't know how I was going to do it, but you pulled through. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala still has to provide for that child. But the child can't receive what Allah is providing him. So how does Allah give the provision to the child? Through the parents. Through the parents. So getting married is one of the ways to build wealth in the community. Not to mention that when men and women get married, men usually spend their wealth on things, toys. We like toys, gadgets, cars, motorcycles. And then a woman who's wise, who's witty, usually comes along and says, nah, you don't need that. You don't need that. You don't know how many times I almost made the mistake of buying something and my wife intervened to say, you don't need that. And as a result of that, you take that money and you go use it somewhere else. It's more beneficial. This is how also one of the ways you build wealth. Because as husband and wife, you begin to feel an obligation to one another as it relates to how you spend your money and the things that you spend your money on. So that also helps to build wealth in the community. Meaning when you're single, you usually squander your wealth on things that don't really matter. Because the only person that you're obligated to is yourself. But when you have a partner, you usually balance each other out. Relationships usually come imbalanced. There's usually one that's a spendthrift that loves spending. And then there's usually one that's a penny pincher, nickel and diamond for everything. So for those of us who are married in here, which one are you?
I'm like in between.
In between. You spend some time, sometimes you save. All right.
I'm a saver.
You're the saver. Okay. Who else? Married on this side.
I got balance.
You got a balance? Okay. Was it all before you found the balance? Which one were you?
I was a spender.
You was a spender. All right, for the women on this side, which one are you? In the back.
I plead the fifth.
Plead the fifth. Your husband's somewhere looking at you, side-eyeing you like, I dare you. Next. Penny pincher. Nickel and diamond. You count every cent. All right? Huh?
I'm the spender.
You're a spender.
Spender.
Yeah, you got on a Gucci hat. I know you're a spender. I know you're a spender. Next.
I was in between.
But before you were enlightened, what were you?
I was a spender.
You was a spender. Okay.
Yeah, I'm learning.
I'm learning. Next, anybody else? But you found, for those of you who said, I'm kind of in the middle, you found your balance. But you had, a history before you found that balance. But usually the balance came about, when you got married. At some point in your marriage, I was a spender, still a spender to some degree, but I found that balance. Now, if it's two of you spenders, that's a problem. Y'all gonna be broke. Robbing Peter to pay Paul. And if two of you are penny pinchers, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala may punish you because you're hoarding your wealth. You're not spending it. Wealth is to be spent, but in a way that is pleasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So marriage helps you to build the wealth of your community. Marriage also is a way to transfer your wealth through inheritance. When we die, we can't take the money with us. So through marriage, we are able to pass our wealth on because there are certain laws in Islam that obligate the man and the woman who passes away to pass on that wealth to their children. Obligated. This is one of the rights of a child over the parent. The child has a right to your wealth in the event of your demise, in the event that you die. You have to pass on some of that wealth to your children. Think about people who die wealthy and they don't have any family. They don't have a spouse. This is why rich people get married. Rich people don't get married because they need marriage. They get married because they need somebody to pass on that wealth to. And this is why, one of the reasons why they pass laws for gay marriage in our society. Because gay people weren't allowed to get married before Barack Obama. That means that if a person was wealthy and gay, he had no way to pass that wealth down to his gay partner. Because his family were more obligated. He was more obligated to pass that wealth down to his family. Now that he can get married, now they can pass that wealth on to their partners. Because now the marriage is legitimate. Just giving you a little bit of history here. So even people who are of the LGBTIQ community, they understand the importance of marriage. We as a religious community still struggling, still grappling of whether or not I should get married or not. And you have people who are gay getting married at alarming rates, while religious people, not just Muslims, even Christians, are still grappling of whether or not we should get married, whether marriage is beneficial or not. That shouldn't be our argument. That shouldn't be our conversation. Number 6 is that getting married protects you from diseases. How many of you here are from Philadelphia? Okay. You do know the AIDS rate in Philadelphia? You know the statistics of AIDS in the city of Philadelphia?
It's like 18,000.
No, I'm talking about the percentage.
Oh, percentage.
How many? 1 in 10, 3 in 10? Go do. My wife just mentioned to me the other day, I forgot it. But as you ride on 95, you see billboards. You see the billboard on 95 about herpes? Yeah. Because it is an epidemic in the city of Philadelphia. I'm sure that it goes on in every inner city. I'm just using Philadelphia because it's the closest big city to where we're at currently. I'm sure it exists in Wilmington, and I'm sure it exists in Baltimore, which is the next city over, and I'm sure that it exists in DC and other places. But getting married protects you from communicable diseases, passing on STDs. I mean, to the point in the Muslim community today that if 2 people get married, you almost have to obligate on them to get an STD test or run a blood test to ensure that they don't have any diseases. That's a policy that I had before you get married on my watch. I'm not going to stop you from getting married, but I'm not going to marry you. We have to do this in the Muslim community. I mean, we're still human. I'm not taking away the human aspect. We still fall victim to our own vices. But this should not be a problem in the Muslim community, other than the fact that we have people who convert to Islam, and whatever lifestyle they had prior to Islam kind of follows them. But as those of us who were born and raised Muslim, most if not all of you guys here, the kids, you were born and raised Muslim. That should never be your struggle. All right? So getting married protects you from infections and diseases, some of which you can't get rid of. Some of this stuff is with you for the rest of your life. And lastly, getting married is an act of obedience. Getting married is an act of ibadah. It is an act of worship that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will reward you for. Especially if you do it in a society where the vast majority of people don't get married. You are an anomaly. You protected yourself, you safeguarded yourself all the way up until the time that you got married. Do you think that's possible? Do you think there's a such thing as a Muslim man? I'm talking to the men. It's very easy for the girls, but for the men, do you think that it is possible that a Muslim boy born and raised to Muslim parents can go navigate his way through school, middle school, high school, even into college, and then go into marriage as a virgin? Do you think that's possible?
Yes.
Yeah,
Or the temptation out there is too much, totally impossible?
it's possible, but it's going to be hard for most.
Difficult.
It depends on the person.
And their personality.
Depends on the personality. Depends on, whether or not they give in to the temptation. Girls, on the other hand, it's easier to believe that a girl can make it through this and go into marriage as a virgin. Why?
Because they have self-control.
They have self-control. In the most instances, they can control their urges. Whereas for males, especially in your age range right now, 15, 16, 17 years old, your testosterone is at its peak at 19. After 19, it starts to go down and you start to get calmer. This is why when a boy reaches about 27, 28, he starts to calm down a little bit more. He starts to think along the lines of consequences. I'm not going to do that because I know this is going to happen. But at 17, 18, 19, 20 years old, your testosterone level is at its peak. You don't think about consequences. This is why most of your shooters in the inner cities are 17, 18, 19, 20 years old. Shoot broad daylight. No mask on, no nothing. Broad daylight. And then when you're standing in front of the judge like this, and the judge saying life without parole, and you go back to your cell, reality starts to kick in. But reality doesn't actually kick in, until you're about 25, 26. And one day you're working out in the gym and you realize you're going to live and die right here in this place. You ain't going home, ever. And then this is when reality starts to kick in. And many of these young guys, they don't tell you this, but many of these young guys attempt suicide. Some of them are successful. When they first put them in prison, they have to put them in a certain unit to watch them. Because the moment reality kicks in, many of them can't handle it and they commit suicide. Or they at least attempt to kill themselves. Yeah, because their brains are not fully developed. So, very important. So, marriage is an act of ibadah. It's an act of worship. It's something that is pleasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when you do it. How old was Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam when he got married for the first time?
25.
25. That should be your marker for young men. That should be your marker. 25. That's not to say that's the sunnah. I'm not saying that's the sunnah because he got married before he was a prophet. But what I am saying is that in your mind as a young man, you have to say, when I get to this age, I need to be married. You can't just float into adulthood aimlessly without having any goal that you're aiming for as it relates to your own personal life. You should set a goal for yourself. What year, what age do you want to be when you get married? And 30 that's not going to happen. Because the longer you wait, what's the danger in waiting longer? You subject yourself to fornication. What's the other danger in waiting longer?
You may not even be an ideal partner for the majority of the
Boy, you want one today. He said you might not even be an ideal partner by the time you're finally ready to get married. You done dabbled in fornication and dating for so long. Your sensibilities have been corrupted. You don't even know what it means to be a husband or for a woman or a wife at that matter, at that point. So this is why when people say, oh, I'm ready to get married, especially people who are new shahadas, I'm always amazed at people who are new converts to Islam. And within the first month or two, he or she's talking about they're ready to get married. This is like, you got to be kidding me. You just spent the past 15 years of your life fornicating. And now, because you're Muslim, you convert to Islam. Within the first 2 or 3 months, you're ready to get married. Impossible. Your sensibilities have to be recalibrated. Because you don't even know what it means to be committed to another person other than yourself after having been committed to your desires for so long. How are you ready to get married? And we have to stop encouraging that, especially the sisters. Sisters in new shahada, she's like, oh, you ready to get married? I don't know. Don't encourage them to get married. Encourage them to learn their deen. Because that sister, unprepared for marriage, is going to marry somebody's son in the Muslim community. And she is not conditioned herself to be a wife, she gonna run him ragged. Absolutely. He chasing behind her, trying to get her to do right, but she hasn't been prepped. And vice versa for the mitten. Brother converts to Islam, encouraging him to get married within the first 2 months of his conversion is the wrong thing to do. He's going to destroy one of our sisters, somebody's daughter in the community. Oh, it's the sister I was checking out. And it's like, how long you been Muslim? 2 months. You haven't even mastered Al-Fatiha. And you ready to take one of our sisters, one of somebody's daughter. I know the sister you're talking about. I know her father. Dangerous, man. So we have to stop encouraging that in our communities. All right? Because the person has been living their life the way they've been living it for so long. To convert to Islam 1 or 2 months into the religion, you're not ready. You're not ready to be anybody's husband or wife at this point. All right, so these are just some of the benefits of marriage, or some of the reasons why marriage is at the forefront of our conversations as Muslims. Does anybody have any questions as it relates to this? Any questions? Do you guys agree with any of this or disagree? Got your hand up?
Me?
Yeah. Okay. Let's move on to something more interesting. Pay attention to this. Can somebody read this for me? Someone read that for me. Go for it.
Americans are getting married older than ever. Estimated
Median.
median age at first marriage in the United States by sex.
So they're saying statistically, Americans are getting married later on in life. They're waiting later to get married. And in the Muslim community, parents, do you see this happening? In the Muslim community? Because we don't necessarily have stats like this in the Muslim community. We should. We should have someone, a group of people who go around to every state, every city, speak to people in the masjid, and collect all of this data so that we can create statistical analysis such as this. So the only thing that we have to go on is basically how they are analyzing America as a whole. And because we're American Muslims, we kind of fall in there somewhere. May not be 100% accurate. This may not necessarily apply to the Muslim community in specific, but generally we can see some of these statistics play out in our communities. Muslims who have been around for 15, 20, 30 years, raise your hands. Okay. So if you've been around in the Muslim community for 20, 30 years, 20 years ago, how old we're talking about in the 2000s? 2003, 2004, 2005. How old were Muslims in the community that were getting married? 16, 17, early 20s. I want you guys to listen to that. Because you weren't around during that time. You 17, you 18, 19, 20 years old. You know, you were born in 2006, 2007, 2008. You know, so you weren't even around during that time. I'm giving you this information from people who were alive and around during that time. I was around during that time. In my part of the country, in East Orange, New Jersey, Newark, Essex County, that whole area, the average age of people getting married during that time was 16, 17, 18 years old. Both brothers and sisters. When I came into the community, how I met my wife was through her brother-in-law, who was married to her sister. And they were what, 18, 19? How old was your sister? 19. I was flabbergasted because I was 23, 24. I'd been Muslim for about 3 years at that time. And to come into a masjid, come into a community, and find a brother 19 married, I was mind blown. And then to find another brother, Shadid, another brother in the community, young brother, 17, 18, 19, and him and his wife. I went to high school with his wife. She converted to Islam before I did, but I never seen her again. And when I came into the community, I'm like, this is where you've been. Wow. Married with children. I was mind blown. This was the average age of marriage in the Muslim community. Those of you in Philly, you already know. The average age, we talk about 16, 17, 18, 19 years old, people getting married. Okay. Fast forward, we're in 2025. What's the average age of a Muslim brother and sister that is even thinking about getting married in today's time? 40? I hope not. 25? Is there a difference between men and women?
Oh, for sure.
What's the average age of a sister who's looking to get married in today's time?
20, 19,
I say
20.
young, like I say 22, 23, maybe 25.
Okay, so between 20 and 25. It's still later. It's still, as we move it forward, we're talking about 20 years ago, the average age was 16, 17, 18 years old. We fast forward 20 years, 25 years later, and that number has increased a little bit. I would say averagely, the average Muslim girl who was looking to get married, you guys said 21, 22, 23. I would say about 25, 26, 27. Why? Because at 22, 23, they're in college. They're not thinking about marriage. I don't know, for those of you that are teenagers right now, from your group of friends and from the girls in your groups, what's the average age that girls are talking about getting married? 19?
16.
Talking about getting married at 16.
I think the problem is we start talking about it at like 17 and still be talking about it at 25.
Right, exactly. That's what I was looking for. She said we'll start talking about it around 17, but by 23, we're still talking about it.
You the men just not. Yeah, you the men.
Oh. Shifted over to you guys. She said the men are not ready. No, the men in your age bracket are not ready. But that's the fault in your thinking, because it is wise for a woman to marry an older brother, not a man in her age bracket. Because the things that you're looking for in a man is not in the men in your age bracket. You're looking for financial stability. There's no 23-year-old boy that's financially stable. I'm telling you from experience. Boys, men do not become financially stable until they're in their mid-30s to about 40. I'm telling you that from my own experience. They may have a job, that doesn't mean that they're financially stable.
I feel like the problem with marriage is now some women just want to be the only wife, and some men already have a wife already. That's why it may be a pause right here.
For marrying an older brother.
For marrying, period.
Marrying, period.
A lot of older brothers, I feel like once they get to us, they've already been married like 3 times.
Facts.
They have like
Facts.
They got like 4 kids already. We 20. Like.
Okay, hold on. For those of you online, that's some real talk right there. And that's exactly what we want. We want to have these conversations. She said the problem with a younger sister looking towards an older brother, and not too much older, if she's 22 and she's looking at somebody 28, 29, 30, the problem with that is either one, they already have a wife and they're looking to marry her as a second wife. She doesn't want to be a part of that, especially not as her first marriage. The second problem with that is that they've usually been married 2, 3, 4 times by that time. Far more experience, sensibilities here again have been compromised. The other problem with that is that they have children. And so a woman who is 21, 22, 23 is looking to build her own family with this brother, not come in and be a stepmother from the very beginning, even before she had her own children. It's one thing for a woman to have children of her own and then to marry and blend the family, marry a man who has children of his own. At least she has her own. But to come into a marriage with a man that already has children and a ex-wife, we don't do baby mothers, we do ex-wives, right? Ex-wife or the mother of his children from prior to Islam. that becomes a little bit, complicates things a little bit more. And I agree with you. I agree. It is problematic. So while the sisters are talking about it at 17, still talking about it at 23, what's the average age for Muslim men in your experience? When do you guys start talking about marriage?
Last year.
Last year? He said that with the quickness. Don't worry about it. We're gonna get you. We're gonna get you tucked away really, really soon, inshallah. He said last year. Okay. So what is the average age that young men start to talk about, think about marriage? 17?
Like
No,
right
Steve.
now,
In your own little circle, have you guys ever talked about, I'm getting married one day?
Yes.
No?
Yes.
You said no. That's an honest conversation.
I think it
No.
depends on where they from.
Okay. What do you mean?
Like the city of Philadelphia, the young kids, they not thinking about it.
So in the city of Philadelphia, young boys are not necessarily thinking about marriage.
That's corny, so
It's corny.
like at the age of they said, no, we think about it.
Ain't nobody thinking about getting married. Okay. I also think it does depend as well on the type of household they come from. Because if a young boy comes from a household and he's seeing his mom and his dad having a healthy relationship, I think that marriage is always on the radar. Even if he doesn't necessarily talk about it or discuss it with anybody, because that's all he's ever known is marriage. Would you guys agree with that? It depends on the household. Now, if they're in a household and he's seeing dad marry this woman, divorce her, putting his mom through, mom crying all the time, he jumping from marriage to marriage and polygyny, or without polygyny, divorced this woman, married to this woman, and he's being bounced from house to house to house, then yes, he's going to have a negative outlook on marriage, probably totally turned off to marriage altogether. So I think it depends on a lot of factors. All right? So it's something that we need to be mindful of. But if you look at the chart here, it says that men's age at first marriage, if you look in, let's start at like the 1920s, 1930s. All right? For men in the blue, women in the purple. So from the 1920s, they were pretty much, if you look at it, women younger, men older. It's always men older, women younger. Why do you think? Why do you think men always contemplate or think about marriage at a later time rather than women at an earlier time? Financial stability. What do you mean?
They want to be more secure in the job and be able to provide for the family.
So men kind of delay marriage. This probably answers our question that I asked the first time, and that is, why do we find that men are thinking about marriage later? Because men usually want to be more financially stable. My pockets ain't right. You know what I mean? I gotta get my cash up, gotta get my money up. Yeah.
I'm gonna say another thing is that young, as you saying earlier, the testosterone all the way over here, so they're not really worried about just settling down and having a companion where you just chill. It's when you get older we find we chill out, so kind of lonely.
So when they're young, they what? With their group.
Yeah, going
Right. That's a great point. That boys usually find more comfort with their group of young boys. So they're running the pack, even the ones that get married. When he marries his wife as a young man, she is actually his second wife. His first wife is his boys. No, that's a fact. I'm telling you this from experience, stuff that I know, stuff that I've dealt with. Yes. She's trying to get him to spend more time with her while he want to go to the gym. He want to go here with his boys. He want to go weekend. It's like, get married, bro.
And eventually they end up picking a side.
Right. In the back?
I feel like this more so goes for young guys in Philadelphia. The prison rates and like the crime rates, they're more so targeted at the the younger men, particularly younger African American men.
Mhm.
So I feel like when you're younger, you don't really have the opportunity to think about marriage guys because like they might have done stuff and like they're on their way to jail, and it's like they like when they get out, they're older and they're like, yeah, it's like it's and not to mention that some people actually get killed, which is also another factor.
Okay, so we're kind of taking the conversation and focusing it on one particular small group. And we're talking about like the inner cities. All right, they are a minority. I want you to think about that. When we're having these type of discussions, we are not talking about the young Muslim boys that are caught up in the streets. And I do understand what you're saying, and that is that if he's caught up in the streets, he's not thinking about marriage. And that might be one of the reasons why men delay marriage, because he goes to jail, right? And then by the time he comes home, he's 28, 29, 30. Now he's ready to acclimate himself to the Muslim community and get married. So that might be one of the reasons, because young boys are caught up in the streets. And yes, that is a valid point. That is a valid point. But those group of young boys are minority in the Muslim community. We oftentimes paint the picture as if these young guys are the majority of our young men, and they're not. They are a small minority of children in the Muslim community that are involved in the street life. And I'm talking about those who were born and raised Muslim. Those who convert to Islam, it's really hard to calculate what their issues are, because they convert to Islam and they never attach themselves to a masjid. Some of them never step foot in a masjid, other than, on Jumu'ah when they come with the rest of their boys. And then they leave out, they don't have a connection to Islam. They just took their shahada. So we can't really factor them in because they're not actually part of the fabric of the Muslim community. Yes?
I have older brothers, they're all Muslim, but their friends are not Muslim. So I feel like they delayed marriage because they had this idea, like, I gotta get this out of my system before I settle down with somebody. Like, when I settle down, I don't want to feel like I didn't do what they're doing.
Right. I agree. She said another reason why boys might delay marriage, you'll see this delay in marriage for boys, is because a lot of Muslim boys, they have non-Muslim friends. And having non-Muslim friends, you want to be a part of the group. You want to be a part of the crowd. So you want to do what your friends are doing so as to not feel left out. And so if all of your friends and your boys have girlfriends, girls they dating or messing with, you want to do the same thing because you feel like, I need to get this out of my system before I actually settle down and get married. And so you spend a lot of your time with your group doing what the group is doing rather than focusing on marriage. So those are all good reasons. I want you to write those down because, and I'm sure there's so many more reasons, but we're seeing a trend now in American society that boys are waiting longer to get married. In the 1970s, the average age for a man to get married was about 25. And then as you see, as we move into the 1990s, that number starts to increase. So by 1990, the average age for a boy to get married was about 27, 28. Move into 2010, which was just 15 years ago. The average age for marriage of a boy was about 30.2. So halfway through his 30s, halfway through 30, maybe 31, approaching 31, he's just now getting married in 2010. Do you think this number, this graph is going to go up or is going to go down? It's going up. Fast forward, this is 2010. Fast forward to 2015. That number has skyrocketed. I think the average age that a brother is waiting to get married now is what? Probably around 35. Around 35. You got to think in 10 years, look at the math. From 1950 to 60, pretty much the same. From 1970 to 80, kind of goes up a little bit. And then from 1990 to 2000 goes up a little bit. So every 10 years, that number is increasing about 3-4 years. So if we're at 31 in 2010, where are we at in 2025? We're about 35, 37, which is pretty accurate. Pretty accurate. Yes?
Sometimes they postpone marriage because they can't provide for the wife.
Right. Sometimes boys, they postpone marriage because they don't feel like I'm ready to start a family. I don't have the finances. But then that's when the community, that's where family comes into play. Family should be helping and assisting with that. All right? So this is to give you an idea that the number is going up. And what do you notice about the number of the women? By 1980, they're about 24 years old to get married. In the 80s. In the 90s or 2000s, they're about 26, 25, 26. 2010, they're about 28. The average American woman getting married, settle down and getting married, is about 28 in 2010. Now, it's about 30, 32. We're talking about after you've graduated with your bachelor's degree, your master's degree, your PhD, now you're ready to settle down. In the Muslim community, I would say probably around 28, 29, 30. You ask the average girl, Muslim girl, 22 years old, you ready to get married? I'm thinking about the marriage.
Well, I was about to say, I believe, like, me watching everything that's going on, like you said in the beginning of the talk about, oh, I ain't going 50-50 or I ain't going that. And a lot of these girls are tying that to social media. Like, watching social media and they watching, you know, this false sense of relationships where they think that, you know, a lot of these men are doing everything, and a lot of the time people are not being truthful. And I think a lot of women like, well, I ain't marrying nobody, I gotta help, or I ain't, you know, back then we didn't look at it like that. And as, you know, somebody who's a little more seasoned, I feel like when you're in a marriage, y'all are a team. And whatever makes the team work, that's how things should be. And a lot of these girls are looking at, if you look at them race, we didn't have all that social media. So they're looking at the social media and they want this and they want that. But if they understand, if y'all put that money together, you can get this and that. And stop looking at the overview of thinking that this man is doing everything for this woman. And I think that's what's keeping a lot of women from marrying, because they like, I just heard a sister on social media, she like, yeah, when somebody say 50-50, I'm walking right out the sit down. But why? This is about to be your family. What's wrong with going 50-50 with your family? So I think that's where the problem is really coming in at, like, these women, you know, they think they marrying, you know, one of these rappers or basketball players, when you're marrying a regular brother with a 9 to 5.
Regular brother, right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Work at Marshall's, work at, you know, some odd job until he gets on his feet. Absolutely. And usually you are the reason he gets on his feet, because when he marries a woman and she likes to live a certain lifestyle, men, we usually feel the pressure that I want my wife to live the lifestyle she wants. And so that becomes our motivation.
And I'm sorry to say this, but I flipped it. Like how people say when you got older, when the women, they go for an older man, I'm sorry, I flipped it. I'm sorry. And it worked out better, because sometimes, like y'all was saying, the men older and they doing more things. Sometimes the younger guys, they come to Islam with more motivation, more, you know, and a lot of times it worked better. You're an older woman, and you know, sometimes it can help out that way. I'm not saying it's good for everybody. I'm not saying that.
Right.
I mean,
so let me I'm coming to you. So let me just reiterate what she said for those of you online listening. And I think this is a great tip. For the older sisters, I would say between 40 and 40, 55, 60, it might be a good idea for you to go for a younger brother. Because the younger brothers are asking sisters to go 50-50. Young girls saying, I ain't doing 50-50. Older woman saying, I'll do 50-50. Do 50-50. So for the young brothers that want to do 50-50, go for your older sister that's willing to go 50-50, because she don't live by the standards that young women live by. Young women, I ain't going 50-50. It's my right. He got to pay for everything. Okay, you sit around and you wait for that guy to show up. For the older sister, nah, I'm cool. I got my own coins. He want to go 50-50, I'm cool with that, because I was doing 100 by myself. So to have somebody come in and take some of the weight off of that, I'm totally fine with that. Right, and get some companionship at the same time, I'm all good. Yep.
So I was going to say that I do believe a great deal in social media, but I do think a lot of the young sisters, part of it could also
Can I give you the microphone? I think we all want to hear that.
I think a part of it is also the fact that a lot of our young sisters watch, whether it be our mothers or aunts or hear our grandmothers talk about how much they have worked and supported the people around them and worked themselves down. And a lot of us are saying we don't want to have to live like that. Do I think it's necessarily realistic? Not in every case, but it's just how things have panned out, sadly.
So you're basically saying that a lot of the younger women are saying they don't want to do 50-50 because they've seen their mothers struggle. They've seen their mothers pull most of the weight in the relationships, and they don't necessarily want to follow that trajectory. Got it. That's, it's logic. I understand it. Don't necessarily agree with it, but I do get it. I understand.
So I was gonna say something similar to that, because I think that especially if a younger person has multiple marriages already, where they've tried to help the brother out and things like that, and when they they go to the other extreme end, where it's like, I'm not doing anything, because they gotta come with it, because they married too many people who could barely take care of themselves and then got married. Which is why in Islam, how we have the legislators, it should be your father, vetting your spouse for you. It should be someone who is honest, honorable, vetting these people, because us as women, we were like, I like you, you like me, let's go get married. That's just how we are. And it may not be a right fit for you. And so we get ourselves in these situations because we're not looking towards the elders on who our partners should be. Because, my son Issa over here, I know what woman will work for him. It's just certain things I'm like, oh, I hope she like a talker, because I know he going to talk. It's just certain things that I know about my son that it would be ideas for me to be like, this will be a good fit for you. If that's you doing, he will be a good fit for you, because I know you. You know what I'm saying? And that's what we need to go back to, because what we do is we'll go on the street, I like him, bring him to somebody that's going to marry us. The brother like, no, I don't think that's a good fit. So we go find somebody else to go marry us, and then it's just a circle. And really what we're doing is traumatizing ourselves. It's not the dean, it's ourselves traumatizing ourselves by trying to go outside of it to get what we want.
I just feel like it's our rights that we have to know too. Like, we have to know our rights equally, like men rights and women rights. Sometimes we marry the brothers who know more about Islam than we know. We know only little, so we just settle for him being religiously higher than us, rather than him being like his personality and how he is as a man. So just educating ourselves as women about our rights, so we won't have to go 50-50. We'll be 100-100, and we can just go with the brother that is going to accept what comes with us, and what we accept come from him. That's it.
All right.
I have also seen, I had a friend who got married, and I've seen people, everything's good, they go through the sit down, everybody's doing what they're supposed to do, they're heavy in the masjid, and then it's as soon as the marriage is validated, they're a totally different person. And I don't know if it's because we're younger and we know it's certain stuff that you have to do to be married, so you want to do it so you can get it done, and then it's what happens? You don't go to the masjid at all, actually. People are getting married at this age just so that they can have sex with each other, honestly, without it being.
Okay, so let me pause on that point real quick. Let me stop on that point. She said, I think that a lot of people are getting married today just so they can have sex. While there might be a lot of truth to that, I would prefer for people to get married and experience a sexual encounter or intimate encounter under the guise of being married, rather than them doing it. At least they got married. They went through the entire process, right? They went through the sit-down process, met the woman's wali, her father, the imam, had to be, put underneath the scrutiny until they went through the entire marital process and got married. Even if that was just about, I can't wait till we get married so we can do what we need to do. They've shown, number one, the ability to be patient. They've shown, number two, the ability to respect the marital process. to even go through it because they didn't have to. So there's a lot of good, and even if the marriage doesn't work, who are we to say that they only got married for sex? Perhaps they just got married at a time. I've seen people get married, get divorced, and then meet back up with each other later on in life. Perhaps they were just too immature at that particular stage in their life to maintain the marriage. Anybody can get married. Maintaining the marriages becomes a challenge. And so some of us, I just think that we are not mature enough to maintain the marriage, but mature enough to go through the marital process. I don't find fault with two young people who get married just to have that intimate encounter with one another under the guise of marriage. I actually respect that more than I would respect the person who just went and slept with each other and totally disregarded the institution of marriage all to begin with. So I'm not necessarily mad at that. Yes?
I was gonna say I agree that means that at least they're showing that they care, and it's like, I'm gonna go through this and we're gonna do everything that we need to do this. And it's better that you got married just to have sex and just go do something else.
Absolutely. 100%. Now, are we advocating that? Are we telling young people to go just get married to have sex? No, that's not what we're advocating. But we are not finding fault with them if that's what they did. And they went through the entire marital process and they went through it. I wouldn't say that they got married just to have sex because they could have went and slept with anybody.
Quick question.
They went through the marital process, got married, they were married for a short amount of time. I wouldn't chalk it up to they just got married for sex. I would chalk it up to the immaturity, that they were mature enough to get married, but too immature to maintain the marriage.
On that topic, how do you feel about younger people getting married but still living with a parent? That's what I was about to say.
100%. I think the parents should be supportive. They should be supportive.
I was just talking to my grandson and then my two, I call them my nephews. I brought them there and I was saying, there's nothing wrong with you guys wanting to date or talk to girls, but you can still get married and do it almost like the same way. You live home with your mom, she live on what her parents do,
Absolutely.
my way.
You have to understand something. I don't know how many times I've said it or how many languages it has to be said in. Our marital process in Islam does not follow the Western tradition of marriage. We have guidelines in our religion that are so relaxed just to help young people avoid doing it in the wrong way. I mean, down to the point where a woman could forego her rights altogether. It's what's called misfar marriage, where the rules are relaxed. She marries him, he stays in his apartment, she stays in her apartment, he comes and stay in her place for 2-3 days out of the week. He has a few clothes, items at her house. She comes stay at his house for a few days of the week. She got a few items at his house. They date with one another. They go to the movies. They go hang out with one another. They have dinner multiple times during the week. They have sexual engagement. It's all halal. They're married. They just decided that we don't necessarily need the traditional understanding of marriage, where you move in with me, I move in with you. Believe it or not, that's probably one of the biggest mistakes we've made in the Muslim community. Moving in with each other, doing this Western idea of marriage. I marry you, you marry me, we merge our lives together immediately. As soon as we get married, I got kids, you got kids, and it becomes overwhelming. You don't have to do that. You can take your time. We'll be married, we'll stay in our separate places for 6 months, a year, until we decide who's going to give their place up. Am I going to move in with you? You going to move in with me? It might be more beneficial for you to move in with me. I have a home, you have an apartment, your lease is up at this time. Just move in here, and then maybe we'll sell this house, and then we'll move into a house that we both contributed to. That's a process. Doesn't have to happen tonight. When you get married, the only thing you're worried about is consummating your marriage and enjoying the honeymoon phase for as long as it lasts. That's what your focus should be. Not merging our lives together and getting into this space where everything has to be, according to the westernized understanding of marriage. I think that's our biggest problem. Because Islam, we don't have to do that. Islam has not obligated us to do that. But we force ourselves because we've adopted this attitude of Western marriage. If you look at this other chart that I pulled up, this is a historic and forecast for whether or not marriage eventually becomes obsolete. And if you look at it, they're forecasting that marriage is probably going to end up being obsolete. So you go back to let's start something a little bit more realistic, 1976, right? 70% of males were married, and 90% of females were married in America in 1970. 70% of males, 90% of females. Fast forward another 20 years, from 1970 to let's go up to 1994. You start to see the numbers declining. The numbers declining. Actual females going down, 80%. And as we move into the 2000s, that number just continues to decline. So they're projecting by 2030, which is 5 years from now, that there will be 30 to 40% of the American population that will be married. That's what they're predicting. That's what they're forecasting. Which means that marriage in American society is becoming obsolete. They're predicting that in 5 years, in 2030, 30% to 40% of male and females will be married in America. Now let me give you a tidbit here. You do know when they make these statistics, African Americans are not factored in these statistics. You do know that, right? What do they base these statistics on? Huh? Not just white people that vote. Because when you sign your voter registration, you put what? Married or single. Most black people don't vote. So we are not a factor when they do these statistical analysis. These are the average white, married, heterosexual males and females. We are not even a factor in that. So how does that look for African Americans? Even further, let's close the circle even more. How does that look for African American Muslims who are now delaying marriage to 30, delaying marriage to 32? If we don't recalibrate and refocus and make marriage a priority in our communities, we end up statistics 30 to 40% by 2030. What is that going to look like? And this is why I push back so much on social media influencers and all of these discussions that you see going on social media about marriage, about polygyny. They just dog polygyny out. Most of whom have never been in polygyny. Most of whom don't even know one person in polygyny. Throwing out all this ridiculous rhetoric about polygyny as if this is something that, you have to be a fool to accept. And this is something that I know many brothers and sisters that are in polygyny happily married. Not on welfare. All of the stereotypes that are thrown out there, we contribute to that. Just simply say, I don't like polygyny, I don't want to be a part of it, and that's it. Cap the discussion right there. You don't have to throw all of these negative stereotypes out of there to persuade people's understanding of this particular marital institution. It's not for everybody. I get it. But it's not going anywhere either. People have been practicing polygyny for as early as the 60s and 70s, 80s. It's not going anywhere. No matter how much we kick, scream, and throw out all of this ridiculous rhetoric about it. Just leave it alone. If it ain't for you, just leave it alone.
What I don't understand is some women will say that, but when they're dealing with a relationship that's not allowed, you're dealing with it.
That's a whole other conversation. I got into a lot of trouble back in 2016. I was probably public enemy number one to the Muslim feminists in our communities, which prompted me to write the book, The Revolution of Love, a man's perspective on marrying multiple women in a non-traditional marriage, which is polygyny. I wrote that book to rub it in the faces of the people who have so much to say about me. I don't really care. If you know anything about me, I can care less about what you think about me. Those are your thoughts, not mine. Have a good day. I don't have a problem with how you feel about me. Just make sure you speak the facts. That's it. But the point that I'm making is that there's so much negative rhetoric out there on social media about monogamy, about marriage, about polygyny. And as I said the other day, we're not leaving our children with any wiggle room. Basically, we're pushing our children towards unhalal or haram relationships. And then when they do it, we have nobody to blame but ourselves because we never created a halal pathway for them into marriage. We've ruffled the road. We've thrown all types of rocks and pebbles and stones in the road that they don't even want to travel that path. And we have nobody to blame but ourselves. Yes?
I was gonna say another reason that marriage is going down, probably also due to the rise of atheism. So now marriage is like, well, that's a religious practice. I don't care about that.
Well, that's a whole nother conversation. He said that that might apply to a lot of white Americans as well. And the rise of atheism. Atheism is the closest thing to being God. So this is for the elite. If you never notice, a person, the more and more they rise in terms of their financial, their financial stability, the less and less connected to God they become. That's just the pathway. And atheism is the apex. It is the epitome of I've arrived. So if you notice when people start to get into these spaces, they start to have all of these weird rituals and practices. It's like, where do you get that from? I remember Imam Ali Davis. He used to work at one of the prisons in PA. I think it was Graterford. And this was the same prison that Meek Mill was at. And Imam Ali Davis was a counselor. And, used to call the Muslims in his office and giving dawah. So he said he called Meek Mill into his office one day. Had one of the brothers bring him to his office, call himself trying to give dawah. And he said that Meek Mill was like, oh no, me and Jay-Z, we practice this ritual, or we worship this, or we worship that. He's like, man, are you from Philadelphia? Are you ridiculous? Are you crazy? Your family is Muslim. I know your family members that are Muslim. But here again, the more and more you start to rise in terms of your fame, your popularity, your status, your financial status, the more and more detached from God you become. Because that seemed like that's the pathway to a person who, is financially, well-to-do, is that you have to divorce yourself from God.
The reason for that is now I can take care of myself. I don't need him.
I don't need God. Yeah. And there are references for that in the Quran as well. So you look at the statistics. So if we don't change our mentality as it relates to marriage, we fall into these statistics, brothers and sisters. Very dangerous. And I need to conclude because I'm coming up on the ending of my presentation. So now, after I'm done with this, we're going to the essential conditions of marriage. Everything that you need to know that would make your marriage valid, halal. All right? You guys paying attention? If one of these 5 conditions are missing, you run the risk of you not actually being married and therefore committing zina. Pay attention. So what are the conditions of marriage? The first is that the woman needs a wali. Someone read this hadith. Switch whichever from any. People just don't, they translate literally. They don't know how to merge English and Arabic together.
Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, whichever any woman.
Any woman.
Whichever any woman.
No, don't say whichever, just say any.
Okay.
Replace whichever with any.
Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said, any woman married without the permission of her guardian, a marriage is invalid. A marriage is invalid. A marriage is invalid.
Okay. You heard that from our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. أيما امرأة نكحت بغير إذن وليها فنكاحها باطل نكاحها باطل نكاحها باطل. Any woman who marries without the permission of her guardian, her wali, then her marriage is invalid, her marriage is invalid, her marriage is invalid. He said it 3 times. So that lets us know that in order for a man and a woman to have a valid marriage, he has to marry her through her wali. He cannot marry her, just meeting her on a train somewhere, meeting her on a bus somewhere, meeting them in some random place, and just decide, hey, let's get married. It doesn't work like that. Follow the proper channels. So who is the guardian? Who is the wali? The wali is a male guardian of the woman who has to be, number one, Muslim. Cannot be a non-Muslim. Has to be Muslim. Number two, he has to be sane, meaning he's not majnoon, he has full use of his mental capacity. Number three, he has to have his autonomy. Has to be free. What does that mean?
Independent.
Make it relevant for me.
Not in jail.
Not in jail. Thank you. He has to have his own autonomy, control over his own life. Meaning a father that is in prison cannot be a wali over his daughter on the outside. He has to appoint somebody else to overlook that, because the things that the woman would need from him, he can't provide that because he's incarcerated. He doesn't even have autonomy of his own self. He has to be told when to go to bed. No man that is told when to go to bed has autonomy, has authority over his own self. If you don't have authority over your own self, you can't possibly have authority over anybody else. So, and I know, a lot of brothers, they're in prison, they have daughters, and maybe they want to be there for their daughters, but you have to appoint an imam, you have to appoint someone else, a wakil. That's the difference between a wali and a wakil. A wakil is someone that the wali appoints to look after his daughter or the woman he's responsible for due to circumstances that don't permit him to do it himself.
So what if you weren't born Muslim and your father, you're the only Muslim in your whole family?
Great. My next slide will answer that question. And number 4 is that he has to be mature. Meaning he has to have reached the age of maturity where he understands marriage, understands the rules, the laws of marriage. Meaning a 12-year-old boy cannot be a wali for his mother. He hasn't reached the peak of his maturity yet where he actually even understands the laws, the rules, the guidelines of marriage Islamically. So here's a better depiction. I wish the picture was brighter, but you can see. So here is the hierarchy of the awliya. Awliya is the plural of wali. Wali is the singular. Awliya is the plural. So here is a chart that shows you, here's the woman. Who's the first person that's her wali?
Father.
Her father. Who's the second person that's her wali?
Grandfather.
Grandfather. The father's father. This is her maternal side. This is her paternal side. The first person that qualifies as her wali is her father. Her father's not Muslim or father's deceased, she goes to her grandfather. Grandfather's not Muslim or grandfather's deceased, she goes to who?
Her son.
Her son, provided he has reached the age of maturity where he understands the laws, the rules, guidelines of marriage. 20, 21, 22, 23, has his head on straight, understands the laws, the rules, guidelines of marriage. Okay, her son is not Muslim, or she doesn't have a son. Who does she go to?
Her brother.
Her brother. She goes to her brother. Her brother's not Muslim, or her brother's deceased. Brother's not practicing Islam. Who does she go to?
Her nephew.
Her nephew. Her brother's son or her sister's son. Brother's son or sister's son, who happens to be Muslim, happens to be sane, happens to understand the laws and rules and guidelines of marriage. She doesn't have a nephew. Who does she go to?
Her uncle.
Her uncle. Her father's brother. Her father's brother. Doesn't have an uncle, goes to?
Her uncle's son.
Her uncle's son. The nephew. Is that what that is?
Cousin.
No, cousin. Cousin. And number 7, cousin. Number 8, what does that say?
I can't read that.
It's blurry. Let me see. Okay, so the last one, focus on the last one, which answers your question. And that the last one, if you look down at the bottom, is the Islamic leader or the imam. So if she doesn't have any of these people in her family that are Muslim, then the imam of the masjid becomes her wali. And this is why it's important for people to convert to Islam and attach themselves to a Muslim community. Immediately, as soon as you convert to Islam, you find your Muslim community and you attach yourself to that community. This is my community, that is my imam. That works out for you in the long run. So that is the hierarchy of her wali. So she has to have a wali. The next thing is a mahar. A dowry is an amount of money, and we can change money to something of value. It doesn't necessarily have to be money, which is why I put the picture here, a house, car, money. It could be anything that is of value, that is gifted. It's a gift. It's not the total sum of what is going to come to her in her marriage to him. Some women, I heard something so ridiculous the other day. A woman said that her dowry should be high, just in case her husband divorces her, she can walk away with something. La ilaha illallah. I literally wanted to take my hat off, slam my hat to the ground, like, what in the world are you talking about? That the woman asked for a high dowry from a man, just in case he divorces her. She walks away from the marriage with something. Where is the flaw in that thinking?
She got to return it.
Huh?
She got to return it when the divorce is final.
No, she doesn't. She only returns it in the case of a khula. The divorce, she keeps the dowry. It's hers.
She's going in expecting to be divorced.
She's going into the marriage with the expectation that at some point she's going to be divorced. Number one. Number two.
She's also expecting that the husband is just never going to give her.
She might be expecting that I'm going to get all I need right now up front because he's probably not going to give me nothing.
That's crazy.
What else? A flaw in that thinking.
Yeah.
She's not dependent on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Come on. Think about that. What is the flaw in this thinking?
It sounds like she just wants what he has.
Sound like she just wants to get from him materialistically what she can get from him while she's with him. Huh?
She's not marrying for the sake of Allah, she's marrying for materialistic.
Well, that's a judgment on her intention. I can't say that. But I see the biggest flaw with this. Go ahead. She's a gold digger. I wouldn't say that. Go ahead. Your hand is up.
Oh, I was gonna say, I mean, like, that's just, you're not expecting anything from your husband, you just thinking he's gonna be a terrible person, which also is a reflection of you. Like, are you that mad to where you just wanna divorce him that quick?
So I'm the dowry. I ask for a lot of dowry so that I can get from my husband what I need to get from him in the case if he divorced me, I'll walk away with something. The flaw in that thinking is that it defeats the idea of what a dowry is. A dowry is a gift. You walking away with something should be when your husband passed away and you inherit his wealth. That's how you walk away with something. You stay the course until Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala calls one of you back. If it's him first, then you take his inheritance. He inherits that. He gives that to you. And that's what you walk away with. But as it relates to you walking away with something in the case that he divorced you, what if he doesn't divorce you? And you ask for all of this dowry and he doesn't divorce you. Which means that your sensibilities have been so corrupted, you will force a divorce. He's not even thinking about divorcing you. But in your mind, just in case he divorced me, you already have that on your radar. Your sensibilities have already been corrupted. The mahar, the dowry, is a gift. It's just, hey, welcome into my life. Thank you for honoring me by signing the marriage contract and agreeing to go into this with me. Here's a complimentary gift as you enter into my life. It's just like back in the day when you would go visit a king, right? Even the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there's an ayat in the Quran. I'll challenge you all to find the ayat. There's an ayat in the Quran where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commanded the Sahaba that when you go see the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam to ask him a question, bring him a gift. And the reason why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commanded the Sahaba to do that is because some of the Sahaba used to waste the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam's time. They didn't really have any questions. So giving him a gift before you asked him a question separated those who really had something urgent to ask for those who wanted to waste the Prophet ﷺ's time. Just the way that you would bring a gift to the king before you would come to the king's court and ask him for anything. You would bring him a gift. You guys, some of you older brothers and sisters, you remember The Godfather? Part 1, right? Don Corleone. When you went into his room, what did they bring him?
A gift.
They brought him a gift. At the Don. Here you go. Absolutely. That's how the movie comes on when his son is getting married, when his daughter's getting married, and they come into the room and they bring him a gift. As a complimentary. The dowry is just a gift. It is not the total sum of what a man is going to give you. And how do we decide what type of gift you're going to give? Does the woman decide, I want this, 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 and this? Or do you just offer a gift in hopes that she would accept it? She decides?
Offer a gift.
If you're offering a gift, you're the one that comes up with the gift. The biggest mistake that we've made in today's time is for a brother to go to a sit down and then turn and ask the sister, so what do you want for a dowry? Bad move. It steals your autonomy as a man. What are you offering me as a dowry? I'll let you know. Give me a couple days. Let me figure it out. And then you, as a man who's had multiple sit-downs with this woman, you can see what type of lifestyle she had. You can see what type of things she says that she likes. From the first sit-down all the way up until you propose, you are clocking this woman. Watching her, looking how she comes into the sit-down, you see what type of bag she has. You see the quality of her overgarments. I'm saying the quality of the overgarment, because this ITI material, y'all need to dump that. If you have ITI in your house, today, when you go home, ITY, when you go home, throw that overgarment in the trash. It's trash. Just like you wouldn't wear a fake Gucci bag, and why would you wear ITY? The material that clings to you like this is cheap material. It's cheap material. Buy you something quality. Cotton, polyester blend, something silky. When you walk, it flows. Not when you walk, it's clinging to your body so everybody can see what you look like. Wallah, sisters, I'm asking you, I'm begging you, by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if you have an overgarment made from this material, go home and throw it in the trash. It's trash material. It's cheap. And many of our seamstresses are buying up this material, making these overgarments and selling them back to the Muslim community. And we're buying them at large rates because they are cheap. You walking around with ITY material on, the cheapest material you can buy, and you got a Gucci bag on, you're a walking contradiction. You're a walking contradiction. How do you have quality and taste when it comes to bag and shoes, but not quality and taste when it comes to overgarment? Not buying that crap. You selling that for $50, $60. How much it go for? And you got the audacity to sell it for more than 100? You kidding me? Man, listen, man, toss that. Toss that. Wallah, I think, sisters, if you say right now, we're not buying that stuff no more. Sell me some quality stuff. Show me where your quality stuff is. Stop selling me the stuff from China, man. Like, give me the quality stuff. Don't you see the type of shoes I got on, the type of bag I'm wearing? I'm a quality woman. I have taste. Don't sell me something that you bought from China for $5 a roll, $10 a roll, and you're selling it to me for $150. Ain't gotta be kidding me. No. But you have, as a man, you're watching her. You see the type of quality she has. You see the type of taste she has. So that helps you, gives you leverage when it comes to buying her a dowry. I know exactly what I want to buy her as a dowry. You come up to the sit down, I'm proposing to you, I'm offering this as a dowry. She's not going to reject it. Why? Women don't turn down gifts. Duly noted. Why?
Because she already wants to marry you.
Because she already wants to marry you. She already feeling you. The gift is just a cherry on top. She don't care nothing about the gift. The gift is complimentary. So any woman that demands that you give her X, Y, and Z, she's not feeling you. She's feeling the gift. When a woman is attracted to you, she don't care what you bring her. she might add, well, okay, I appreciate you getting that. Do you mind getting this for me? This is something that I wanted. All right, cool, I can't get that for you right now, but I promise I'll make sure you get that. Within the first year of our marriage, I'll make sure you get that. All right, cool. Done. But this whole idea of sitting at the sit down, so what do you want for a dowry? Nonsense. Don't do that. For the men, just go find something that is of value that you think she would appreciate. That's how it goes. If she wants something additional, you can say, here, I'm offering this. If you want something additional to this, alhamdulillah, I would be willing to negotiate with that, but this is what I'm offering as a dowry. No woman is going to tell you flat out, get out of here with that. I'm not accepting that, other than the fact that she wasn't feeling you anyway.
No, I think that's a better way to look at it too, because if he offering you something like you said, he paid attention to you, and that goes to show me what type of man you are, that you paid attention to
Absolutely.
what I like.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Facts. The next condition, the third condition, is the marriage contract. You see, they're signing the marriage contract. The marriage contract, without going into a whole bunch of details, these are stipulations, if you have any, that you want to be included in your marriage contract. So for a woman, if you don't want to be in polygyny, then you put it in your contract. I do not want to participate in polygyny. So if at any point you decide that you want to take another wife, our marriage contract is null and void. If you do it behind my back, our marriage contract is null and void. You understand? That's how you work your contract. You don't want to move away from, maybe your parents live in the city. You put in your contract, I don't want to be moved from my city. I want to stay here. It doesn't matter where I live at, but my parents live here, my grandparents live here. I don't want to be moved from my city. You put it in your marriage contract. For the man, you don't necessarily have to put things in your marriage contract because you are the authority. The contract works in favor of the woman. You are the authority, so you don't necessarily need a contract. Even though if there are stipulations that you have that are specific. For example, you married a woman that has children from a previous marriage. You can stipulate in the marriage contract that all communication flows through me. I don't want you and your ex-husband communicating without me being included in the conversation. No more private conversations between you and your husband. Put in the marriage contract that if your children are going to come over to visit, that is a conversation. We have to negotiate that before. I don't want to just come home from work and your kids from your previous marriage are at my house, jumping on my couch, staring up my house. I had no idea that they were going to be here today. You know, it doesn't work like that. We have to communicate. All right? And I mean, you don't have to put that in the marriage contract if there's already an understanding between you and her. But the marriage contract is part of the conditions of marriage. The last thing is witnesses. Marriages usually traditionally took place in the masjid. For some strange reason, people don't get married in the masjid anymore. Muslims, they rent out these halls because they want to listen to music. They want to add other things that are haram. I've gone to marriages and nikahs at certain places, and they couldn't wait till me and another imam left. As soon as we were going, party time. Imam Asim, rahimahullah ta'ala, may Allah have mercy over him, my man. Me and Imam Asim was attending this particular brother's marriage. And the brother whispered in my ear, he said, you know they're going to party as soon as you and Imam Asim leave. I said, I know. They're not going to do it while we're here though. As soon as we left, I saw Imam Asim get up, leave first. I turned to my wife and said, come on, let's go. And you could see the fireworks going off as soon as I got in my car. But we're having our events at these places because we get to incorporate that which is not part of Islam into our marital ceremonies. And we're abandoning the masjids. We need to go back to getting married in the masjid. The masjid witnesses your entire marriage. People are there for Dhuhr, there for Asr, Maghrib, whenever you're getting married. And everybody that's there is witness to your marriage. But this whole idea, just you, the wali, the woman, and y'all get married in some remote corner somewhere and then come and have a celebration somewhere else, this is not the tradition that we want to abandon. We want to make sure that we stick to the Islamic traditions of marriage. And so this concludes my part of the discussion, about 15 minutes over. So what we want to do is if we could give everybody 15-minute break. Inshallah ta'ala, you guys can go out and get some cookies, get some water, some chips, whatever's out there. Inshallah, stretch your legs a little bit. Come back at 4:30, and Muhammad Shaheed is going to give you guys a presentation for the last 2 pieces. And then after he's done, the food will be here. We'll eat, have some dessert, chat a little bit, and then you guys are free to go. Yes? Okay, they said the juice is for dinner, so leave the juice. Drink water. Drink water, inshallah. So 15 minutes, and then we're going to come back for the second half of our presentation. Jazakumullahu khairan. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. You guys can hit those lights over there, or you can leave them off. It's up to you. Assalamu alaikum. What's happening, young man? Good? Alhamdulillah. What's the ayah? Surah Al-Mujadila, what number?
Ayah 12.
What number is Surah Al-Mujadila?
Oh.
67?
It's not 67.
I should have asked you something.
64. Let's type in Surah Al-Mujadila and see what number comes up.
Because I'm already on the...
You gotta exit out. So it's ayah 12, ayah 7 or 12. So he found the surah, Surah Al-Mujadila, ayah 12, where Allah commands the Sahaba that before you present to him, you to offer him a gift as a complimentary. Assalamu alaikum. How you doing, Sheikh? Alhamdulillah, good to see you. Alhamdulillah. Assalamu alaikum. What's happening, young boy? Huh? Good? Allahu Akbar. Assalamu alaikum. Alhamdulillah, what's happening? Good? Right? Change your look up a little bit. Got the glasses on. Bring out your smoothness.